City of Erie Historic Review Commission meeting. Today is July 1st, 2024. We'll start with the call to order and roll call. Jean Craig Pepper, I believe she's on the way, so we'll see if she shows up, but she's currently absent. Dave Brennan here.
Here.
Mark Tannenbaum.
Here.
Melinda Meyer.
Here.
Matthew Falcone.
Here.
Jason Mazurik's not here, and he's not online. And other, Heather? Heather's here. Okay. First item is the public comment, and we don't have anyone here with us today, but I think there's a letter that Heather wanted to discuss that was sent to the HRC.
Hopefully this microphone works. So, received a letter from someone in the public, H.A. Wilson, and they wrote in asking for consideration of our particular object within the city of Erie to be considered in the historic resource survey that's coming up. They wrote, in consideration of gathering historical artifacts and sites in Erie, please consider the set of 4 bronze cannons in Lakeside Cemetery given to the city of Erie to honor the service and victory of Captain Gridley of the Olympia in the Battle of Maritime during the Spanish-American War, or Battle of Manila? During the Spanish-American War. The cannons were captured by the American forces, but because they were manufactured in Spain in 1749 per the marking on the cannons, perhaps making them some of the oldest artifacts in the area. This battle is so significant to the U.S. Navy, and it is represented by a diorama at the U.S. Navy Historical Museum in Washington, D.C. So, like other objects and artifacts and sites in Erie that may not have been documented in prior efforts, just thought that that should be shared with the HRC, and especially with our upcoming citywide historic resources survey in the beginning in the near future. So just thought I would share that because that was a letter that was written into the city pertinent to the HRC.
Okay.
Can you provide who wrote the letter? A.J. Wilson. A.J. Wilson, thank you.
I've seen these cannons. They're amazing. They're all individually amazing. Sorry. I've seen these cannons. They are amazing. The site, you can see out over Lake Erie there. They're right down on the tip. It's amazing. I think Greeley is buried there. I think his grave is right there. But that whole cemetery is historic. Nearly as historic as the Soldiers and Sailors Cemetery and the artifacts there. There's statuaries in that. That's also, if we were going to think about this, that's a great place. But those cannon are stunning.
Yeah, well, great.
They're huge.
And it's spectacular to think that they date back to 1749, and since they were manufactured in Spain, they weren't considered, according to that version of history. So it's nice that we're opening things up and opening the box, so to speak. That's great, Mark.
Well, great. Well, thank you for sharing that.
We should go there.
Yeah, our next meeting there. Okay, we'll keep moving. The next item we have on the agenda is the approval of the past meeting minutes. Did everyone get a chance to look at the meeting minutes?
Yes.
Any questions or issues with the meeting minutes? Not see any. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I move we approve our meeting minutes from June the 3rd.
Matthew, and do we have a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those against, nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it, so it passes. We'll go to the next item. We have our old business is next on the agenda, and the first item is the updates to the HRC City of Erie official use forms. I don't know if is there a report on the latest? I think it's is it finalized now? I guess we'll hear an update. Almost.
No, I'll defer to you.
Maybe Matthew will share in a minute. Last week, I want to say it was just after, about the time, or around the time the agenda was formulated, Matthew sent the files. I didn't incorporate them in the original email sent out with the attachments. As you'll see, there is the Historic Resource Nomination Form. And as I'm reaching the Certificate of Appropriateness and the application for that, based on the meeting that we had in May, the special meeting for the forms, Matthew was able to combine the district nomination with the historic nomination form, so that instead of there being two forms, they were condensed into one form. I do think that there was a set of instructions we talked about, so maybe what could happen is, Matthew, if you've kind of maxed out your time on these forms, I'd be happy to make time next week to look at these and maybe translate that prior set of instructions that Chris had put in place, if you're okay with that, and if the board's okay with that. But they're really close. Do you have any other input on these, Matthew?
I would happily defer to you on updating the instructions. I think that the most important thing is that we're able to ensure that all the instructions that we give to the public are easily accessible and that the form is easily readable. I really don't have a tremendous amount of new information. It was really collecting, I think, all of our thoughts on how the form should be changed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at one of the boxes seems to be a miss under district, but that's certainly just typographical. But no, it was capturing kind of all of our thoughts about what information should be included on the nomination form to make it easy to work through. And that's what we have in front of us now.
So perhaps what could happen is that I make minor modifications to what he is, also modified, add the set of instructions that Chris had previously, and send them for the August pre-review before the meeting, in maybe hopes that in August we can vote on them. Would that make sense? If they could be sent as a part of the package preemptively with those set of instructions?
Are the old forms currently on the website right now?
Melinda, did you access the forms recently on the website?
Yeah, so the the old form
Mhm.
is still there.
Yeah, that's
so
all.
We'll finalize that and approve that as soon as possible then, so we can get those on the website. Or do we just need to put it on the website because we've already vetted that?
That is a good question. I would assume that there are some minor things, and I do think that the set of instructions to go along with them would be needed.
Okay.
I would think that it would require a vote. I don't know if
I
that
would think
be
so
a
also. I'm just
special,
asking out loud.
a special meeting.
Do you need a space in between the resource and nomination, or is that, okay, I wasn't sure, it was just the,
There's a few things. And Matthew he put it in a lot of time, like across all of the documents, but there are some little things that I think were just formatting issues that maybe didn't translate between like the Adobe software.
Okay.
And so I can make time in my schedule next week to look at these. I haven't looked at these.
so we could finalize them, then send them out for review, and then approve at the next meeting. Okay.
That sounds good. And yes, until these get passed through, the existing forms as they have been are on the city website.
Yep. Okay. Next, is there anything else on that subject or any other questions? We good? The HRC, the CLG training, any updates to that?
The state did award us the CLG training grant for the required commission mentoring work that's required of CLGs. I think it was 2 weeks ago, had sent an email to the HRC members asking for our preferred time and date schedule for trainings, whether it be this summer or fall. That particular organization, the Commission Assistance and Mentoring Program, known as CAMP, said that they have very few openings in July, and the opening that they have didn't align with schedules. So they only had one opening in July. They don't have any in August, but they do have quite a few in September. So last week, about the middle of the week, once I received everyone's responses, had sent an email and called the camp organization in Virginia. They and I had spoken a few weeks ago, and we tentatively set it for September. I'm just awaiting to confirm an exact date. But I did receive everyone's input on time of the day that they prefer the training for it to be. And the 4 sections, it's hard, the mic is there and the screen is here. We're doing the standards and guidelines for design review. So we'll be doing, as an HRC board, we'll be going through the standards and guidelines for design review. That's an essential. The elective is the design review exercise. So that was our 4th topic. That was an elective one. The 2nd required topic is legal basics. The 3rd required topic is meeting procedures. So those will be our 4 topics that we as a group will be going through. And there is the option for members to join but watch it at a later date and time, so if there's a conflict, although that is not the preferred sequence they told me. But if it doesn't align with all 5 or 6 of us to be present for the training,
It's going to be in person.
It'll be online.
Online, okay.
I should have clarified that. It's held live, but they record it as they're teaching it to each CLG. And there's 2 instructors. And so the sequence of it will be a 4-hour block of time. The camp organization and I talked about it being something like a 12 to 4 or 1 to 5 or 12:30 to 4:30, because it seemed like that aligned best with most people's schedules.
Okay. So as soon as we get that date, we'll get it on our calendar then.
Yeah. And I can certainly let members know what that date is ahead of next meeting, like as soon as the camp organization defines what that date and time is. I'll definitely let members know. So.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Okay, any questions for Heather on the training program?
Nope.
How many people get to go to that? Or get to do that always?
Yeah, we all
Oh, it's
attend.
online. We
Yeah,
get to do it
it's online.
That's great.
It is, yeah, it's required of CLG organizations, like each year.
Yep. Okay. That sounds good. No comments or questions. We'll move on to the next item, which is a new business. And that item is A, the recommendations of recommendation of Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home as historic site.
Great.
So who would like to discuss that?
I move to make it an historic site.
I think we're just introing it for right now.
So if I can, okay. So if I can mention, so as we discussed at the June meeting, the Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home is one of the state-owned resources within the city of Erie. And they are indeed proposing some changes, but they also, as a state agency, specifically the Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home is under the purview of the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. And so per state legislation, the DMVA does already consult with the State Historic Preservation Office when it comes to work that is happening at the Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home, because it is a resource that has been determined eligible for listing on the National Register. And so we have here a nomination for local designation for the Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home. I did have a conversation this morning with a representative of the DMVA, and from their perspective, they didn't see an issue with providing a letter of support for the nomination. However, they suspect that it will take several weeks before that letter of support can actually be secured. They have to run it through the administration of the DMVA, and it also is quite possible that a letter of support may not be provided until after the current consultation work that is happening on a specific project at the Soldiers and Sailors Home is completed. You know, as many of you know, the Commandant's House is proposed for demolition. And so just, you know, as the home, as the DMVA works through that demolition process, again, they may choose, if they choose to provide a letter of support, they may choose to provide it following the completion of that particular project. So
they'd send it after it was already demolished?
yes, although we also have to be kind of cognizant of the hierarchy of legislation. And so federal legislation, state legislation supersedes typically the local legislation. So even with the nomination and local designation of the Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home, it is highly unlikely that they would follow through with the local legislation and the review process, because it is a state-owned resource. And again, if you're looking at the hierarchy of governments and legislation, federal and state often is above local legislation, local municipalities. And so even if we were to designate this as a historic resource, they may or may not actually approach this. Yes. Yes.
So what is their mindset, the Cunningham House, or is it potential Wright House?
Cunningham House or the Wright House?
Remember the Cunningham House, that Hammond?
Oh, you're talking about, those.
Right, so that was one end result to working with the entity. And then, fortunately, we were able to save the Wright House.
Yes, so there is an upcoming meeting, a consultation meeting happening. So the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs did begin the consultation process with the Pennsylvania State Historic Preservation Office, as they were supposed to back in 2020. And then between 2020 and today, that consultation process has had multiple starts and stops just because of changes in the project itself. So the advisory board of the Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home actually voted to demolish the Commandant's House back in 2019. I think one of the only reasons it's still standing is because COVID disrupted
Right.
like
Their
all
plan.
construction activities. And so they are finally kind of back where they would like to be, I think, with making plans for the proposed demolition. So I believe that they have already started either putting together the bid packet or have actually gone out to bid for a demolition contractor. Although, again, I don't know that with certainty. But they have also moved forward with the consultation process with the State Historic Preservation Office. So the next step is to meet with both the SHPO and local preservation consulting parties. So as a representative of the Historic Review Commission, Heather has been invited to participate in that consultation meeting, which will be scheduled or has been scheduled for mid-July. So there are also others have been invited to that meeting. So the Bayfront Eastside Task Force has been asked or invited to attend. The Three Forts Project has been invited to attend. The Historic Erie Preservation Trust, the Erie County Historical Society, Preservation Erie, right? So as well as the Historic Review Commission through the Historic Preservation Planner for the City of Erie. So again, that consultation meeting, which is an opportunity for the preservation parties to share their opinion of the project and even suggest alternatives. Whether or not the DMVA chooses to change their plans is another issue altogether. So just because they are required to go through this consultation process does not necessarily mean that they are required to alter their demolition plans. So
should we have some good suggestions for them and do some scurrying around and try and figure out?
And there are. So there are already 2 or 3 really good solutions that have been generated that will actually be proposed at this July meeting. Not necessarily through the HRC, because I think the HRC is probably new to this, to what's happening at the Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home. So other preservation interests have actually been engaged in coming up with solutions or alternatives to the demolition of the Commandant's House. So those will be proposed at the July meeting.
Just, they have so much land, it seems like that there's surely something could be worked out so that building gets to stay.
Sure. So I would like to note, though, that with the nomination, just my own opinion is that it would be ideal to include with this nomination a letter of support. So certainly I am not advocating that other commissioners not review this or choose to make a motion. What I'm saying is it might be prudent for us to wait on the DMVA to move this through their administrative process to see if we can secure a letter of support, and then formally vote on the nomination once a letter of support has been secured by the DMVA. Now, again, this is for the commission to review. There are merits of both moving forward the nomination without a letter of support from the property owner, which in this case is the Commonwealth. Again, we're talking about public property. I want to differentiate between public property and private property here, even though our ordinance does not necessarily differentiate between public and private, but this is state-owned property. And so, again, I'll probably leave it now for other commissioners to weigh in and share an opinion.
Any comments?
Soldiers House is amazing. The cemetery is amazing. You know, it's That's one of the oldest cemeteries in the United States. It's almost equal to Arlington. Like that Soldiers and Sailors Cemetery is that important to the military and to the nation.
It just seems so unnecessary to me. I mean, they've got a heck of a lot of property there, and
So
how
they're
they,
tearing down that one.
why they're so determined to get rid of that house is sort of bizarre.
It's cute, it's real nice.
But I would kind of point us back to the nomination itself, because I think
Yeah.
the demolition of the commandant's house, while related, is also, it's almost like a separate issue, because the Soldiers and Sailors Home.
Does this include
Can-
the blockhouse and everything? Like, because the blockhouse is there and
So
that
the-
circle, even just that shape has been there forever.
So the nomination includes the entire property.
The site.
So it includes the home and the historic features that still exist architecturally, right? The buildings that still exist, as well as the cemetery itself, which is a key,
Yeah,
I would consider that a contributing resource to that property.
There's a famous
And then, of course,
statue
we
in
have the blockhouse. Yep. As well as there are individual objects on the ground. So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
also a cannon on the grounds.
yeah, there is. Used to be more. There's actually one of the most valuable stained glass windows in the country is in that building.
Oh, right, yes.
They have a stained glass window, #1, of Lincoln, which is the only one in America. And it may well be that he sat for it. And if that's the case, it's worth millions. The other thing is they have a stained glass window of the Battle of the Monitor and the Merrimack. Like they have a stained glass
They do.
window of the battle between those two ironclad ships in their building. And they have a collection of stuff. I gave them stuff in the past.
But it does, so the nomination itself does meet the
Artifacts.
criteria for
Yeah.
local designation in multiple areas. So when we talk about either themes or broad patterns of history, right, we're looking, we can point out the site's significance with regards to military history and veterans. We can also look at it with regards to medical service, specifically medical
yeah.
service to veterans.
Civil War veterans.
Certainly.
Yeah, they were, and I believe there are people that are buried in the cemetery that fought in the Battle of 1812. They didn't fall during the Battle of 1812, but they served during the Battle of 1812.
Right.
And were later passed away and were later interred in that cemetery. And there were people from the Civil War interred in that cemetery.
Well,
It's
it's a
historic.
wonderful
It's historic.
historic site. I don't think anyone's arguing that. I
It's
just
amazing.
am concerned about,
The house being, yeah.
So,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was hoping we could help prevent that.
I think that the best way we can help is to follow the process that we have in front of us. So I think that there's 3 steps we need to take. The first is accepting the nomination, with finding that there is, excuse me, formally accepting the nomination and finding that there is kind of reason to believe that there is historic significance with the site. So I would put forward a motion, or I move, rather, that we accept the nomination for Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home in that it meets 2 of our historic significance criteria.
Do we have a second?
I would definitely second it.
Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you. I would follow that motion by then moving that we provide a positive recommendation to the city's planning commission and to city council for the designation of Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mhm.
And Melinda, can you clarify or remind me its level of nomination? Or is it being nominated as a district or a site?
So
Which,
I would advocate historic site.
Okay. Because it has buildings and structures.
It
which
has,
are
but it's also one site.
big
Yes.
site. So
Yes.
just to clarify. So it will go as a site, whereas more recently, we've been nominating, more landmarks. So, thank you, Matthew.
So a motion on the table, I don't know if you'd like to call for a second.
Oh, we already had a second.
Oh.
Oh, did we,
You made the recommendation to city council?
Yes.
oh,
I would second
so I have
that.
another you see
That's
another,
two,
another motion?
technically.
Yes.
Okay, so do we have a second for the second motion?
Sure, yes.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
And then I think that for the, the issue that was described by Commissioner Meyer about the upcoming consultation meeting, we should put together, I think, a formal letter
Yeah.
that states that we are in receipt of the nomination, have supported it, are moving it forward, and that also we would, I can defer to staff with this, but something along the lines of, we oppose the demolition of contributor resources on the site and very much support the retention of any historic fabric that is part of the Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home historic site.
Matthew, that's a great recommendation, and that is on my radar. I have also approached Renee with the city, and will be in touch with her office again prior to that meeting, because I do think that a letter from the city as a whole, in addition, your idea for a letter from the HRC, would be very useful.
Okay.
So
Any
then-
other comments, questions?
No, do we need that as a formal motion then? So then I move we provide a letter to, excuse me, remind me of the name of the state agency that
The
owns and
Department
operates
of
the site?
Military and Veteran Affairs.
I move that we provide a letter to the Department of Veteran and Military Affairs that supports the retention of historic fabric and opposes demolition of any historic fabric on the site.
I agree.
Okay, do we have a second? You agreeing
Yes,
for the second?
absolutely.
So we have a second. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay. Well, let's move on. That was the last items on their agenda, but I know there was one other item that Heather mentioned, the historic review, historic survey that you were going to report on.
Sure. We thought it might be timely to bring up the Citywide Historic Resources Survey again. I think we discussed it briefly in the June meeting. It seems like that was just yesterday. I believe at the June meeting, we reported on how the week prior to the June meeting, we had received quite a few highly qualified proposals for the Citywide Historic Resources Survey from the RFP that was due on May 23rd. The city, utilizing our planning staff and HRC member commissioner commentary, we did hold interviews with 3 of the firms that had applied. And we did make a decision to hire EDR. And so EDR will be the firm that will be completing the Citywide Historic Resources Survey. As we know, phase 1, which is the community engagement and kind of active community component, that's due in September. So this week it's on my palette to be opening up a contract with them. I've been in phone call dialogue with EDR, their project manager, and their principals to get that moving along. So hopefully by the next time we meet in August, hopefully they will already be starting their phase 1 for the process. As you might recall from the RFP, phase 2A is the physical beginning of the survey work. So there's a phase 2A and a phase 2B. Phase 2A originally had a expiration date or due date of September 30th this year that aligned with that particular Keystone grant that was awarded for that part of the process. 2 weeks ago, I requested an extension with the state, and last week followed up with the state on that formal request for extension for a year. So hopefully we'll hear back on that soon. That would put both phases of the physical survey work due September of 2025, which would be much more ideal and in line with the timeline of both their workload and what needs to be done between now and the end of
And the
September.
consultant's good with pushing it?
Absolutely.
They're not going to raise their fee? Okay.
So they, in their original proposal, their schedule and timeline did comply with how it currently stood, which at the time of the RFP was September 30th of this year. But we all know that there was the potential for conflict, maybe things being accidentally left out, so on and so forth. And that was the basis for my request on behalf of, the Citywide Historic Resources process for the extension. So just thought I would give that update because that would give them a full another year for that portion of the survey.
And so the 1-year extension was requested on the CLG grant or the Keystone grant?
That one's a Keystone.
Keystone, okay.
There's 3 different grants, but that particular Keystone, yes. Yeah. The other Keystone has a due date already of September of next year, 2025. So I just thought I'd give a quick update on that. So EDR should be starting off with the Citywide Historic Resources Survey, phase 1, very soon as we can all get on board with the contract and start moving along. And the community engagement specialist, her name is Sarah. She and I had a great conversation a few weeks ago about specifics in terms of like what she was thinking for Erie and what they've done in the past with cities like Syracuse. This particular firm did a citywide historic resources survey for Syracuse. They did like 2 different phases of that, and they also talked us through different community engagement kind of tactics or planning efforts that they've done. So it sounds really exciting, and they're really invested, and they're so eager to start this work. So I think we should feel really good about this particular firm because they have a unique interest in what we're doing, and they're close. They're not far. They're just in Syracuse. So
Great. Okay, well, thank you for the update. I think that's it for our agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Actually, before we do, I did want to mention, so we have it on record, that we had our special meeting kind of earlier today to start talking through the historic preservation ordinance and changes that would be appropriate, kind of given our how much we've worked through the ordinance over the past couple of years, and that we would like to continue our work and hold another special meeting. That will be this coming week on Tuesday the 9th. So I know that our ordinance requires us to formally vote on special meetings, so I will put forward a motion that we hold a special meeting on Tuesday, July 9th at 3 p.m. In order to continue the work that we have begun to revise our Article 7.
Okay, would someone make a second?
I second it.
Those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. It passes. Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
I would like to follow that up with a motion to adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second on that? Any seconds?
Aye, yes.
Okay,
I'll second
great.
that.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Passes.
There's the other key.
Great. Thank you.